Now, what was at the front of the prison was a whole cottage industry of shops where they had carvings and decorative bits of crap. They sold some of the things from within the prison bakery, all of that. So they're usually connected with the officers in some way. I've got to walk up through there without anybody recognizing me as a foreigner who's got no purpose being here, or, of course, a prisoner. But I had one very fine stage prop to hand that I had thought in advance of such a situation, not quite walking through the front. It was an umbrella, a pop-up black umbrella, quite small, but enough to cover my head, and there was the lightest of pitter-patter rain. A nice downpour would have suited me fine, but then again, if that had been happening, me and the electric fence would have got on so well. So this was the right balance, God. Yeah, you've chosen well, I almost said for once, but no time to get into an argument with the Almighty over religion. So that meant I didn't have to swim across the moat. That meant I didn't have to dress and undress and secure my clothes in a plastic bag. I popped the umbrella up and walked under the guard towers. As I approached the first one, I could see he had to kind of wake up because everybody's coming to work now. He's got to look like he's at his job. And he's kind of got curious, but I can't really look up completely, can I? Because my white face will be shown.
Oh, my God.
I'm heading towards the front, but as luck would have it, some of the guards are arriving late for work, sometimes bypass if they lived at the back by coming around the side of the prison along the very narrow footpath that heads towards the front of that prison. So I guess he looked down and saw khaki pants, somebody with an umbrella heading towards the front gate, and that assuaged any doubts he might have. After all, do prisoners carry umbrellas in case they get a bit wet? In case their hair is out of place or something like that? No, they generally don't.
I think I saw a Bang for Broad episode where the prisoner escaped dressed as a woman. He was like on a beach with an umbrella walking along. But then a guard recognised him and he ended up back in. Yeah.
Don't you find too in prison escape movies, oddly enough, the escape mechanics itself are always dealt with in 10 minutes or less. Whereas in real-world ones, they are nothing like that. The ones from the Supermax took Harry, the one that came over to try and get me. He was assessing whether I could be broken out from the courtroom. He was in the Supermax with me. That's where I'd met him in Australia, and he'd escaped from there, or tried to, almost made it. But he was cutting bolts through on sliding doors. His hands were bleeding. His hacksaws were breaking. He'd got into a kind of day room, and there was a fridge there that they had, fridge and freezer for prisoners. And he'd found somebody had orange in theirs, and he said, "I sucked that orange juice out, and it just was enough energy to keep going through the next bit of cutting." I'd helped Harry a bit in that. We had to trigger an alarm in the day room opposite so that they'd dismiss it as being faulty, not the one that he was going through. So a useful tip, everybody. If you haven't got many resources but you need to time something to happen at a special time, you could do what I did back then, which was I froze 2 shoelaces in a block of ice in the prison's freezer, tied one end of it to the window, the other end to a laundry basket which was teetering on the edge of falling off. We figured the ice would melt within about 3 hours at some point before he was going out, fall on the floor, trigger the motion sensor, which it did, and it sent them down. So
wow,
there you have it, a little alarm activator without the need for electricity, melting ice.
All natural.
Yes. we try to be green thinking in these things, despite all the drugs and killing. That's all recycling. Anyway, where am I? Oh, yes. Down, walking towards the front of Klong Prem in Bangkok with my umbrella, peeking a little underneath, saying to myself something out of the film Alien. You might recall Ripley is saying, lucky, 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 lucky. I kept saying those words like, okay, this is a long way to come to die now. But so I managed to get to the front, and I knew from the bus trips returning to the prison, there was another kind of walkway across the moat, but it was at the front, so they didn't worry about that one. So I joined that one, and there were people coming and going, setting up their stalls and their goods to sell. Plus, the guard that used to take my Visa card to the bank and ran Building 6's accommodation section, he was arriving for work. I don't know what it was, but he looked at me and didn't dismiss it straight away as nothing. I could see he hunched down over his steering wheel as he drove in the car I'd paid for. Something, I think the way we walk is the body language is memorable in some way. We all have a particular walk. I think I could recognize yours at a distance if I had, say, one other clue that it was possibly you. But there was something triggering him. But the car needed to be handled, so he drove on.
So you're still within the main entrance now? This
prison is set back from the main Bangkok to airport highway, a big 8-laner, and it's set back about 300 feet in some grounds that have got ponds and.
So the newly arriving guards are driving into the complex.
That's right.
They don't park
driving
outside
in.
The complex.
No, they're in the car parks at the front of it.
Gotcha.
And that's where I am. If I look to my right, I can see people lining up for early visits, which is, well, it's a whole other saga, the way they run their visits. There's a screaming match between two sets of bars separated by about 15 feet. I get to the road. I'm starting to feel pretty good. To get across the highway, there was a pedestrian walkway. And I thought, yeah, better if I'm fighting with traffic dodging in and out, my luck, I'll get clipped by some truck or something and can't talk my way out of that one. I still got in my pocket the key to what Charlie, my Chinese friend, has assured me will be a waiting passport. Does the flat even exist? I don't know that. I like him. I think it's right. Anyway, I got to the top of the pedestrian overcrossing and thought, hell with it. I turned back to look. And I looked over. It was my first view from height of this huge prison after over 2 years. I looked back at all the buildings and was saying to myself, that makes sense now. You know, that's where I am. That's where that was. And another thought occurred to me. I'm looking back at perhaps 8,000 people in there just about forever. I've left them, but that's all still going on. The struggle for food, the battles over who to bribe and who to pay. But that's behind me. But there it is. Remember that. So
when you say you've left them, are you now having an overwhelming feeling of relief because you threw the main gate? Is that why you feel you've left them?
The moment at the window when I was outside of my cell was really the crucial difference. Because all the time that I'm escaping, I'm trying to escape, getting over inner walls and making things, that I'm a person at work. I'm the character, as I'd made myself, of somebody who will do this at all costs. I can't surrender. I know what happens to people who surrenders. If I slip, I'm not allowed to slip. If I fail to find a solution to some obstacle, I cannot.
But isn't that pressure off then as you're at the main gate?
It is.
And you're feeling something else.
And you sort of humanize to some extent and start to think about real people with their real lives. And I wouldn't say I felt bad, but I realized too then that just as I was looking at that moment, the doors had been opened, and somebody surely would look up and see a bent bar poking out into the night, or to the day by then, and that ladder still propped on the inside wall. And then what would happen? Who would they start with? Where would the interrogation begin? I didn't know it, but because mine was a kind of private cell, there was only one other in that whole building, belonging to somebody who called himself a doctor, dead wife somewhere. Yeah. Anyway, he maintained that fiction in the place. He must have had a bit of money. He talked his illnesses up into having his own cell. But other than that, because I had my own, the guards just walked past in the morning, and the trustees didn't do a proper count. It was kind of like, no, that's Westlake's cell. That one's all right. I don't have to count that one. Maybe he's in the shower behind the screen. It's not a thing to think about. So they went on. And all the guys just went downstairs to begin their day, looking at each other, thinking, when's it going to happen? And it's about 6:35 now. I finished fooling around on top of the walkway and went back down to the other side of the road, and thought, well, off to the apartment, see what's really there. I got into one taxi, went to a nearby address just to kill that off, walked around, found another one, and then went to the apartment. Point being that I didn't want to get that apartment into trouble later on. If some taxi driver said, well, I took him there, then they, by elimination, break down who lived there and who might have been helpful. And it's very easy to get people into serious trouble anywhere, but particularly there. So the second taxi took me to that address, with which I was unfamiliar, but I found the right door number, and cracked open the key tag that contained the key. And remember, I put it in that tag in case I was caught trying to escape, and I didn't want to have to explain away that key, what it belonged to. There was actually somebody in the place. Charlie had thought it was so unlikely that this had ever happened. He'd let a guy who was working in Bangkok for a few weeks use the apartment. So I hit the chain and he let me in. Oh, hello. Oh, yeah, Charlie said you get bail. Yeah, exactly. Just now, 6 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. Gee, I feel a sudden, can I use your toilet? On my way in there, I'm thinking, wait a minute, Charlie's letting somebody live here. But I really think that behind some mirror in the toilet is it, and Charlie had been begging me not to make this escape. He said, your chances are so small. They like to talk in percentages in Asia. 4 or 5%, And even that was, bigging it up. And he was around when some guys had their prison van hijacked on the way to court and broke out with armed motorcycle riders and took off. You know how they got that lot? When the van was stopped by the armed men and the back of the van, which was on its way to court, was opened, that guard stuck up and had his gun taken. The guys came out who were escaping. One of them changed his mind in that van. He went, and the other guys looked at him, went like that, your choice, and they left. But what did they leave? They left a human being with knowledge of their plans, stuck on a prison van. Yeah, they should have forced him along, shouldn't they? At least got him out of the way one way or another. So, yeah, of course, when that prison van got back to where it was going, the guards would have gone into the van and said, anybody know who else was involved in it? And a sea of fingers would have all pointed to this guy. And he was questioned robustly, and eventually gave the address. I mean, as if you'd stick to that, having left a weak point in that. But isn't this the part in all the movies where you're sitting at home or in an audience saying, don't do it, you idiot. You're leaving a clue, a weak point. And weak it was, because the police handed it on to a commando unit of the Thai army, who said, that's the address. How many of them? Oh, they got guns, have they? Huh. Well, bad luck for them. They went in, and apparently the locals made a killing in brass, scrap metal. There were that many spent shells lying around and bobbing down the stairs of the place. They just nothing left of the people who'd escaped. So Charlie knows this, and he's the one I've been trying to convince to leave this thing. So I've locked the toilet door, started to slide my hand up behind the thing. Nothing. So far. Then slid my hand up. Oh, no, that's just a nail. Then a bit, wait a minute, that's something. So pulled it out, and there's an envelope. And a quick feel, impatient as I was by then, clock ticking, I knew it was a passport. But there's always something fresh. Don't you find whenever you find the solution to one thing, there's some fresh thing to worry about? Like, if you're doing a run or you've got a bit of business going on, you've solved that one, but a sea of other possible disasters appears, doesn't it?
Yes, your mind focuses on what's possibly going to hinder you next. But my question is, as you're feeling up for this thing and you're thinking it's quite improbable, perhaps because you think you're not going to escape, and you do find it, what went off in your head when you found it? Besides looking at the future problems.
My first thing was a kind of glowing love for Charlie. That whatever I find inside this envelope, he's tried to do something for me. He's had enough. I don't know, what makes a person do something they think's a 1 in a million chance simply because you asked for it?
And what do you think that was in this situation?
I don't know. Perhaps he saw something in me that made him hold out hope that even however improbable it was or unlikely to succeed, that would be a useful thing to have.
And if anyone could do it, you could do it, perhaps he was thinking.
Maybe. Or possibly he was just thinking, he's asked me to do it, I'll get it. It might be needed at some point for something. I don't know. But the next question was, what the hell does this thing look like? I opened it up. It was a British passport. I can't really... McFarren? It had a Mc in it. Charles was the middle name, I forget. But that was not what I was looking for, the name. The photograph had been taken from my radio operator's license, which is a certificate you get when you pass a test for the technical side of it. And it had a little photo in it. But if you copy a small photo into another small photo, it gets a bit grainy. So that wasn't great. But it was in the right place. The stitching didn't look terrific, but I didn't have time to worry. It looked good enough to get me past the barriers. Now, I've told the guy who's still scratching his head in the morning, gotta go. See my lawyer. Oh, right. None of it makes any sense. Where did he come? Just to use the toilet? Anyway, he was sleepy, went back to bed. So I'm off, and I left and said, I won't need the key. Stupid thing to do that, wasn't it? Should have kept that key.
Yeah, because he'd wonder where you were going in a hurry.
It wasn't that. I mean, it was a door out of the rain. It was a place I knew.
Potentially a sanctuary.
Yeah. You know what I think was going through my mind? The key's out of its little safe place now. If I'm carrying it, it's still the same problem. Explain this key.
You're putting it behind you.
And I didn't want to have to explain that.
Yeah.
Or do something stupid. So anyway, be that as it may, I was in a hurry to get to the airport. Now, at the airport, of course, I don't have any a suitcase. I don't have any tickets. I have nothing. I've given all my money away to the guys back in there to protect themselves, the ones left in the cell. So I've got 2 ATM cards. When my friendly officer who got my cash for me for 10% from the ATMs, he'd always give me that card back. So I had that one. And I had another one as a kind of backup one. But that wasn't an awful lot. I mean, I could... neither of them, by the way, matched the name in the passport. So I can't use them for travel or to pay for tickets. I've got to get cash out of the machine. As I'm arriving at the airport, time-wise, back at the prison, the discovery's been made. Mirage has let it be known. It wasn't me straight away. I done my... He didn't want to be questioned later on and say, well, why didn't you come to us straight away? I think, he said, oh, the big white one threatened to kill me, I don't know whether he did or not, but beside the point, it probably made things worse for Stan a little. So they don't believe it. They go look at the cell. Yeah, then look around and somebody reports in, oh, the workmen have left their ladder on the outside wall, on the inside part of the outside wall. And then it all falls together. The screws in there panic. Their livelihoods are under threat. Their commissions, their factories, their network, their little empire, their safety. So a bunch of them jump into a car and start heading for the airport. They didn't even tell the police. They didn't want anybody. They thought if we're really lucky, and he is going for the airport, then, and we get him back and nobody's the wiser. What we do to him once we've got him, that's another matter, but still.
The Israelis.
Yes. So clearly I've got to the airport before them, and it's a big airport, biggish. The old Don Wang airport, not like the new one. I'm not calling anybody by phone this time because, well, that got me in there in the first place.
Not going to say goodbye to Tommy.
No, not even to say anything. Well, not to a soul. I haven't got time anyway. I arrive at the airport. A friend of mine had made some preparations there by leaving some carry-on luggage, that sized bag, with a toiletry kit in it and a couple of changes of clothes, socks and underwear. He'd left that in the long-term left luggage depository. You could leave things there for 3 to 6 months, I think. And I had sandwiched in a greeting card or something that I was carrying. Yes, it was. Perhaps it was a book. But anyway, it was sandwiched. It was the deposit slip to that thing. So, but before I did that, I'd need to get some money and trying to get out of Bangkok before the next things happen. I put one ATM card in thinking, all right, that'll be the ticket and the rest I'll take a second destination and refer to bank. The ATM machine rejected the card. The next one. Now, I've got almost nothing else. This has to work. I've keyed that one in, and it's live. It's paid. I've hit the max, $500. That spat that out. I've gone over and picked up my luggage, gone back, looked up at the big board of where can I go to. And you can imagine what would be your priority in such a situation.
My priority would be, oh my goodness. I would just be trying to get the hell out of there somehow before the guards arrived. But
well, you're right. Timing. You want the first available flight that hasn't actually closed.
Yeah.
That might even be boarding, but they'll still sell tickets to.
Okay.
Because you've got to go to the ticket counter and get one, or Sometimes with some check-ins, there's a ticket counter at the end of it, and they'll take a cash payment for that.
Right.
So you don't want anything where there's elaborate procedures. If it had been a Middle Eastern airline, that would have been a long haul, but I didn't have money for that. I didn't have money for a cheap flight. This was a one-way, worst-case kind of ticket buying.
It's like you're at the last hurdle now.
The only thing that was taking off within the next hour that I could afford was Singapore.
Yeah.
Disadvantage, they already have the death penalty for drugs and a cozy relationship with Thailand, in which I would have, if detected, I would have been brought back.
Do you think going there, that's perhaps the guards would have assumed you wouldn't have gone there then because of those reasons?
I think their automatic thought would be, okay, foreigner, English, Australian, go to some Western country.
Yeah.
That's it. There's a plan, surely.
So they'll be at the British Airways gate.
Yeah, they'd be looking at all those flights. Not he's going to a country that would hand him back straight away.
Yeah.
And as almost at every point in this event, the escape, something that seemed a disadvantage, being by myself and not having to argue decisions, lots of other things, the things I had available to me. Again, here, the limitation of not having the money turned out to be the wisest thing. If I'd have had all of the money available and then been able to go on a long-haul flight, because that would be the instinct, wouldn't it? Get out of Asia, get out of the danger zone. If I'd have got onto a flight that was going to be in the air for at least, 12 hours to get to Europe, when my friends back at the various embassies would have been told about it sometime in the morning and asked, had any of you people issued him with a passport? No. Where do you think he's going? Some smarty would have been sitting around at lunchtime saying, you know what we can do? If we get the passenger list for all the departing aircraft this morning from 9:30 onwards, or from the beginning, from 6 o'clock. And then we divide up the nationalities of those passengers and ask each of our embassy colleagues from those nationalities to run that passport number under lost or stolen passports. And if we get a match, that's our man and that's our flight.
Were you not tempted to not go to the airport at all and to head for a border and cross as a tourist? What countries does Thailand border with?
To the north, there's Laos and Cambodia and Vietnam on the other side.
Would it be easy to get lost in those countries?
Yes, but in a way...
it didn't work for Gary Glitter, did it?
No. I
want to be in my game.
Yeah, there were a lot of internet jokes with him around, wasn't it? I did think my solid friend Lee could hide me out somewhere, but I was past that point of trusting anything or leaving anything to anybody else's error. If I was going to die, I wanted it to be, out of something I did directly. And in the past, most of my woes had come about because I'd left some element of something in the hands of others. So I didn't want that. So I'm not on a long haul. I haven't left myself open to being detected by process of elimination. I'm on the flight to Singapore, but I've got to get onto it. I go to I've got the ticket. I go to the immigration, and I'm in front of a rather too efficient-looking immigration man, not the usual idiot. He's got my passport. He's typed it up, put in the date of birth, passport number, entry date, and he stopped clicking. These are looks you don't want.
Well, this is how this story started, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's like an elliptical plot now.
At an airport somewhere with bad things happening over a document.
Yeah.
And it ain't the first time that's happened either. It'll happen later on in Pakistan, Lahore airport. It was even creepier. this life hanging in the air, because I know if there's something wrong here. And I'm thinking, Charlie, is there really such a thing where your friends have a guy on the computer? Or is it like, you see that in movies, don't you? No, we've got a man down at the airport, he'll fix that. Our man on the computer. There isn't a man on the computer. The only man on the computer that anybody's ever is some nerd watching porn having a wank out in the suburbs. It's the only man on the computer. Anyway, those thoughts are running through my head when he abandons whatever thought was in there, stamps the thing. One of the most satisfying thwump of stamp on paper.
Oh, God, you must have been
I said,
this is the last hurdle now.
It seemed. I got on board, strapped myself in. The steward came along and said, can I get you something? Water. I was thirsty by then. And only when I got it did I look at my hands, which were really quite a mess. But not on the outside, fortunately. So
when you retrieved the passport from the toilet, were you tempted to have a shower and clean yourself up a bit, or do anything like that, or were you just pressed for time?
I think no, not really. I didn't stink or anything.
Okay,
there's nothing visible.
There was no Mars bar stuff.
No. I'd kept out of the creek.
Yeah.
The litre or so I'd used cleaning my face and hands up and whatnot. It seemed to do the job. I just didn't want to use up what would invariably surely turn into another hour.
Yes.
And be even weirder with that guy, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I've come in not only to have a pee, but to use the shower, take a dump, and then leave him with it.
And throw my key at you.
Yeah. You were meant to be a girl.
At least the lady boy.
Yeah. Or something close enough. Right. So, sitting on the plane, there's a delay.
Oh, no!
And the words from the captain were, ladies and gentlemen, we are waiting. Well, there's with one passenger. What does that mean? What? Didn't catch that bit? Something? I'm not going to inquire, make a scene. I just have to sweat it out. But eventually, the even more satisfying sound of the sealing of the aircraft door and the thwump.
Wow.
And the plane takes off.
Wow.
Before the next set of fears and questions comes to mind, I've got now an opportunity, Shaun, to have a good look at this passport and see what it's made of. Nope. Wrong stitching. Yeah, can't tell with the ultraviolet. Is it there or is it not? It has to be. Yeah, they'll certainly do that. Picture looks dodgy. Kind of see a wrinkle in the paper where they've peeled it off. Yeah, you have to. But it's the only one I got. So I arrive at Singapore.
Let me ask you this though first. So what are the consequences of those things you just described when you arrive at Singapore? Could they potentially say this is fake and send you back?
Well, the first thing they'd say is suspicions that the passport's wrong.
Yeah.
And then, could you wait here while we check it?
Yeah.
That wouldn't go well. So they'd come back and say, well, what flight was he on? The one from Bangkok. Kindly explain. Well, I'm stuck there, kindly explaining, and I haven't got another one to use, and or a nationality that I can claim, which will do me any good.
Yeah.
I've found over the years that the British do something that very few other countries will do in a hurry. They're quite happy to issue you with a passport under any circumstances, even if you're on the run or whatever. I've known a few people to crawl their way in there.